governing business and relationship. The preface.
Governing business and relationships. Preface. All the problems that people encounter with their business and relationships converge to one rudimentary problem. It is the lack of development and use of the intellect. You remain unaware of the power and grandeur of your intellect. Make little use of it while you combat the multifarious problems of life. You're all fighting the challenging forces of the world with bows and arrows when you have a F-16 in your hangar.
You all understand F-16? What he's saying is, all your problems boils down to one thing. You've got to have a powerful intellect. It's the lack of a developed intellect. Nothing else. And you would complain of various problems. From your point of view, it's correct, but it all boils down to having a powerful intellect you can tackle anything. And you not only fail to develop the intellect, you're unaware of the importance of the intellect. That's the worst part of it. I receive complaints and complaints and complaints. It's so funny. I address the complaints directly, but actually the bottom line is, like, I can't tell him you don't have an intellect, because it's not something which I can supply straight away. So I address the problem immediately, whatever is necessary. But the bottom line is, you don't have the proper reasoning to handle your problems. And with all sorts of things you handle it. And the comparison is, you are in the modern world, when there is F-69, the modern fighter aircraft, and you are using bows and arrows. It's as absurd as that. It all happened. I was writing the preface of this book in Oklahoma, in the US. As I was writing, I was lecturing that evening. In the audience, there's one fellow who came, I wouldn't call it late, last. He came last, one of the last chaps. So I noticed him. Funny dress, overall. Overall. Just one sack-like thing he was wearing. I thought it's for Americans. Anyway, I'm used to the Americans. I saw the fellow. And I ignored him, I was talking. But I could see him at the back in rapt attention, following everything. End of it, he came with one difference. He had a big hat. The hat itself was very stylish. The rest of it was like a sack. And he almost saluted me. Sir, I'm delighted. I'm very, very happy to hear you. It makes a lot of sense what you're saying. It's not on governing business and relationship. I was talking on something else. I'm very impressed. I saw you. Then he said, would you like to see a F-16? said, you mean the aircraft? Yeah, I'd very much like to see. You mean to say I can have a direct vision of that? Yes. Okay, if you're free tomorrow, I'll take you there. And then he said he's a fighter pilot of the U.S. Army, U.S. Air Force. Fighter pilot. That's the dress. And that's the cap. And then I was about to salute him, He's so smart, so slim and smart, And the next day I knew what he was worth. He took us in the car, and there were four of us, all jokers who didn't know the spelling of F-16. So, we went there. And the fellows were all protected area, Pat, 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 they were saluting him. I said, this is the guy who came yesterday, overall. And he took us to the hangar, right into the hangar, and said, this is the F-16. Oh my God. It was a thrill seeing that, And, the irony of it, he took me into the cockpit. And just about fitting, just like this I was sitting. And he was telling what this handle is, what this handle is, and the whole missile goes just above the fuselage there. Zoom, it turns this side, I'm finished. Pilot is finished. It's incredible thing. So I was writing the preface next morning. That's how you may all be wondering, what is F-16? You're fighting the challenges of the world with bows and arrows when you have a F-16 in your hangar. Hangar means shed. You don't hang there for... And I don't know what you understand. So that's the story of the F-16 hangar. I sent him a copy. So, in short, what it's saying is, if we have a powerful intellect, two things, business and family, both will be perfectly organized. But you do not know my wife, Swamiji. Now what to do? Good thing I don't know your wife. You should be happy. You do not know my wife, Swamiji. You do not know my husband, Swamiji. You do not know. It's all intelligent application. I know Sushila Yadav, who has become a world-famous lecturer now, just returned from an engagement. The whole Bombay was listening to her for 6 days. Kayati, did you know about it? You should know and attend the lectures. Public lectures. Whole Bombay was listening to her. And Surya Yadav came to me 30 years back, I think it was. And she said, I'm not able to study. And nobody studies, what is your problem? Who studies Vedanta? You are also not studying, it's okay. No, I want to study. Then study. I'm not able. Why can't you study when you want to study? He says, too much noise in the house. Too much noise in the house. What do you mean too much noise in the house? Too many people. And people will be there. How can I study? He said, and then I asked him, what time do you get up? 6 o'clock. What time do you folks get up? 6:30. Huh? This should be studied 4:30 to 6. See, it didn't occur to her. She went back and studied 4:30 to 6. Pin drop silence. He says, never ever had such quiet. So it's application again. The whole lifetime she would have complained, yes, there is noise. But you know, if you don't have the quiet place, find a quiet time. Hmm? So this is the application of the intellect. So any problem can be solved by careful thinking, reflection, analysis. And if at all, with all the thinking you're not able to solve, you have not assessed the situation properly. That also needs an intellect. If you assess the situation, see this environment is such, the people will be such, you assess. My wife is an irritable person, my husband is a hysterical person. You understood, there's nothing much you can do. Then you can't keep changing wives and husbands because everybody is hysterical. So this is assessment. So if you have not assessed, then you use your intellect. You got to use your intellect to assess also. So all the problems can be solved. This F-69 can finish off everything. That's what you have.
The intellect and the mind are the two equipments which drive the body to act. Of the two, the intellect is most powerful. It is the faculty of thinking, reasoning, judging. The mind is the seat of impulses, feelings, emotions. When the intellect guides the mind in actions, then they would be discretionary, mature. And when the mind overpowers the intellect, the actions would be impulsive, immature. Thus, all management emanates from these two equipments, and the caliber of management would depend upon the use of the intellect in deciding the course of action.
So there are two forces, as you know. This is elementary, you learned that either the intellect or the mind drives the body to act. If the mind takes over, all actions are impulsive. If the intellect intervenes and judges and decides, then it will be discriminatory. So it's a question of what aspect of your personality is playing. Management, the caliber management depend upon how much you use your intellect in deciding the course of action. It's as simple as that. You don't use your intellect in your actions, management is another action. You will be in trouble.
The world today lacks the awareness of the intellect, much less the necessity to develop it. For centuries, the human intellect has been totally neglected, causing severe damage to persons and families, corporations and countries. Yet people have not awakened to this stark reality. They remain complacent, not realizing the vital role the intellect plays in human life. That all management and sound relationship must proceed from reason and judgment of the intellect rather than feeling and emotion of the mind.
So as we said earlier, the world lacks awareness. Leave aside development. We don't understand there is an intellect which has to be used. Then you better use it properly. Develop it and use it. But the corporates mechanically follow routine practices.
The corporates mechanically follow routine practices in the conduct of their business laid down by self styled business schools. Spouses and parents are overwhelmingly emotional than rational in their approach to each other and their children, while religious practitioners pursue dogged, pertinacious procedures set by their leaders' baseless beliefs, superstitions, and rituals. The entire human race blindly adopts a life set by predecessors. The intellect, lacking development and strength, hardly plays a part in the lives of people. Consequently, families are torn apart, business houses collapse, and nations are at daggers drawn. While governing bodies in the fields of education, politics, and religion helplessly gaze at the internal and external crisis that humanity faces.
Both in the business and families, intellect has been neglected to a point of fault. We just adopt what our predecessors have done. So, businesses collapse, families are torn apart. That's the condition today in the world. All arising out of lack of development and application of the intellect.
The human intellect can handle, harness the rigors of nature and the colossal challenges of life. But the neglect of the intellect has left human beings troubled and tortured by the slightest confrontation of the world. The celebrated English poet William Wordsworth laments on this sad state. It grieves my heart to think what man has made of man when every flower enjoys the air it breathes. Furthermore, the intellect is of two kinds, based on its distinct functions. They are known in Sanskrit language as Tikshna Buddhi, gross intellect, and Sukshma Buddhi, subtle intellect. The gross intellect's function is confined to the extremities of the universe, while the subtle intellect can go beyond the universe and reach the transcendental reality through identification with one's own self within.
So
A
you're quite familiar with that Tikshna Buddhi and Sukshma Buddhi. One is used for anything terrestrial and the other thing goes to the transcendental. So what you need is a powerful gross intellect to take care of the affairs of the world.
powerful gross intellect could with ease take care of the problems pertaining to all mundane affairs, be it business or time management, work ethics or leadership, family relationships or stress. Whereas the subtle intellect identifying with the self could gain the ultimate of all management. Herein, you are given the formula for governing the perennial confrontations of the world you live in and rising above to attain complete sovereignty over it.
See, all these confrontations that you have at the level of the business, the level of the family, is all mundane. But it takes care of all that. But if you go in the same track, you go towards the transcendental and find the ultimate solution of complete sovereignty over everything, which is self-realization.